chance to meet the maker. Not all the time you get to meet the makers, you know, the folks that actually do the work. And that way we'll tell you about all of our spirits, and we also at the same time allow you to ask questions and answer all your questions, especially if you've been trying to sample this right now, and some of the questions you've been getting, we'll be able to answer that and making sure that you have all the tools, everything you need to be successful. Okay? You're an extension of us. We've hired you because you're an extension of us, right? You realize that, and I know you do. And that's why we have to have you with as much knowledge as possible to be successful. We've been around for what now, 116 years in the beer business. We've been,
1909 we opened.
yeah, we started the whole spirits side of it about 5 years ago. We've been selling it at the brewery, distillery. We can sell it with the TABC laws for about 2 years now. And so it's our big case study. We get 75,000 people that come to the brewery every year to see the brewery and distillery. And a lot of them don't even know we have a distillery until they get there.
Well, that's a nice magnitude
Yes.
thinking. Shiner is 4 hours away from here, and it's only a town of 2,000, so it's a very small little dot on the Texas map. So to get 75,000 is quite.
So real quick introductions for all of us here. We have the sales team here. Okay, so Steve and Melissa here are representing our sales team here, and then the production team, Tom and Jesse are here for production. I'm in charge of both the whole brewery as a whole and distillery as a whole. And Jesse now is in charge of all of our brewing production, our beer production, and spirits production, both. Okay, so she manages both. She doesn't manage the packaging side of things, or the hospitality and stuff like that. But she does all the creation.
I do give tours every now and
Yeah, she gives, and she gives tours all the time. Okay, we're both been to schools, and so we have accreditations in brewing and distilling.
Do you work with master distillers as well?
We work with master distillers and everything, and master brewers. Okay, we're on the phone just a while ago on the way here, actually with a master brewer about some issues that we're having. And so we collaborate with a lot of folks. We know a lot of people in the industry. I've been at it now for 35 years, and you've been 8 years. Okay, she's been in the business for 8 years. So a lot of experience, a lot of mistakes, as you can imagine, along the way.
Learning
Experience.
not mistakes, learning experience.
Yeah.
That's right.
So if you take your book, your pamphlet right here, I want to give this to you so you can write on it, and when you have to do an event for us,
Take
you
it
can
with
pull
you.
it out
Yeah.
before you go. I call it the little cheat sheet.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can kind of go, oh yeah, I got to do a Shiner event, so you have this in front of you. So you can see our spirits right now. We don't have the bourbon yet, but we've got the vodka and the gin and the Shine. Now the Shine, just so you know, is our bourbon base. Don't forget that. Okay, the Shine is our bourbon base. So it's the bourbon before it goes to the barrel. Okay.
And so you'll see the packaging is a bit different. So this is what it'll look like in July. We're doing a refresh. So what you're going to be sampling is up there on your right, and then on the left is the new stuff. Cinnamon Shine will
What
get
we
a refresh.
noticed is when we launched, and I don't know if you heard some people asking about it earlier, but we launched with this bottle over here. And the reason why it's the only bottle we could get, to tell you the truth, because during COVID, there were no bottles to have. Everybody was drinking like there's no tomorrow, and this was the only one we could get. So we went to this. Now what we noticed was there wasn't a big presence. So if anybody asked about it, we're trying to increase our presence on the shelf. It's the truth, okay? And so this bottle kind of sits on the shelf, this one stands up on the shelf, okay? And so we want all of them this. Now we are gonna keep the Shine in the smaller bottle. There's not a lot of white dogs. They also call that white dog. There's not a lot of white dogs out there in Texas. So when you're sampling the Shine especially, you're gonna be pretty much on your own playing field. I mean, you've got a chance to do about anything you want there with it. And we'll talk about all of these and what we do from a cocktail standpoint with all this. Jesse had, until recently, because it's just, the department just grew and grew and grew. She had we had bartenders at the brewery and distillery, and she had them reporting to her for years. And the reason why we did that is because so she'd get the direct feedback from the bartenders what everybody's saying. And so now she doesn't, as of just recently, we just moved that away because of the different departments. We
Our
just got so
hospitality
many.
department's growing. We're
Yeah,
adding a tasting room.
we
we're
got
doing all
so
Lot
it's
of
just
new
too
things.
much going on.
Yep.
But that's the difference in the two bottles. How you like the new one? Yeah, it's a
People
little bit-
recognize Shiner, so this is, you know.
It's
pretty
really
simple
close to
thing.
our 1 liter too,
Pop-
the
it
1
pops.
liter.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Shelf
1 liter that we
back
sell
market.
and we have is the 1 liter that you'll have in Spags, along with it. It's mainly for, on-premise, right, for a bar. It's very much this, and so we're always, you know, when we noticed our bartenders made a comment to us right away about this is tough to pour.
Mhm.
And this has got a nice long back and it's really easy. It's easier to fit in the well too. It's not as fat, you know, cumbersome to get in the well. The well is that little trough behind the bar
Yeah.
where everything sits. Okay.
Anyway.
So if you look through your presentation here, you get to see right away, we put it in there and we'll have more of these, by the way. 'cause
Done well last year.
we did,
sending
yeah.
off samples
These are all
right now.
medals that we have got in competitions. The gin is by far the most awarded, and then the shine is
Shine,
next.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, the shine is the most
Mhm.
awarded, I'm saying, but then the gin is next. The two of them are really neck and neck. We don't actually, send them off, our marketing department sends them off. We get surprised when they ask us to send them places, and then they come back and how much they like us, especially the gin. Look in there on the gin one, I think it's the very first one, I
Mhm.
believe, on the gin. We were in the top 3 of gins in the US,
For Esquire.
of new gins for Esquire magazine in 2023.
Oh, it's the first in the lineup there. Oh.
It's the
Yeah,
first one in the
you're fine.
lineup, yeah, the lineup there, yeah, for the gin. So that really surprised us, so the gin is, and the shine are winning awards. If you've ever tasted, if you ever get a chance to taste a shine, most of the white dogs aren't very drinkable, and I'll tell you the reason why. And the reason why is because the barrel, when you go into a barrel, you can hide a lot of things. The barrel is gonna take over on the flavor side of things, versus what you had. We actually, on the shine itself, Jesse and I it was coming off the still, and we were sitting there and we're tasting it and we're doing it's called cuts, when you try to figure out where the best part of the distillation run's gonna be. And we're tasting it, we thought, what the heck is this, right? It was just so incredible that we thought, hey, let's actually sell it. And, this is what we make most of our cocktails out of, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So if you're talking to a bartender, this is the one, the shine is what, and now don't get me wrong, vodka is, we all know all the use of vodka. Vodka is the big volume, a big volume play, but the shine is the one that we find it to make the best, unbelievable cocktails. Okay, we'll taste it here in a minute. Okay? So a little bit about us. You see our picture there in the Rick House. You see that, about, what it looks like there at the brewery. We've got over 400 barrels. We keep on adding barrels and barrels of bourbon out there. But we partnered, what we did was in our equipment, and you're talking about, first class in terms of the operation. We partnered with one of the oldest engineering, firms in the UK, actually, that does all the engineering for all the big spirits companies. Okay, Diageo and all these big, huge names. So we actually partnered with them for our brewery and our spirits. Okay, so when you're talking to somebody, they ask us about, the kind of equipment that we use. We're talking about first class equipment. All the equipment came from Scotland. Yes, Scotland. We got to go, by the way. That was pretty cool. Yeah, I drank enough for a lifetime. It was absolutely a blast, and getting to see the operations and getting to see them make the equipment was incredible. And then these are people that make stuff still with a chisel in hand. You're like, oh my gosh. So that's who we are. So that we did not do anything, we did not skimp on anything. This is not a backyard still. This is a beautiful piece of equipment that's modeled after some of the biggest Scottish names, whiskey names in the business. So that's what we did. So the same people that did our work did Glenmorangie and all these big names that are out there, that obviously sell a lot more than what we do. Okay, so they did the same, they made the same equipment as we do. A little bit about the still house, you wanna talk a little bit about it?
So before we actually enter into the still, it starts back in the brew house. So we're craft beer, right? That makes us a craft distillery as well. So we start with ingredients in 55-pound sacks all the way up to rail cars. And so we back trace it just like our beers. What do we want the end profile to taste like? What do we want the spirit? What do we want the beer to taste like? And so all of our mash bills, or the grains that we make our beer and especially the spirits out of, get calculated, formulated just for that specific spirit. So like our vodka and our gin, we have barley and corn. For our bourbon, which is aging right now and will be ready probably later this year, is 4 different grains with wheat and rye inside of it. And so we do make a rum down in Shiner. It's a sugar base, so we really get custom. We start that all the way back in the brew house. We ferment it in our fermenting cellars. We use special yeast because yeast gives something that we call esters, which are just flavor profiles. And so they all produce different things. So we get very custom on that side. And then 370 gallons at a time, we go into this copper pot still that you can see circled in the figure there.
We're on still house number 1.
Still house number 1, the pot still. And so it's not great in this picture, but it's a darker color copper than the rest of the equipment that you see because it's used the most. It's being exposed to the most heat, and so it patinas faster and becomes this really, really pretty darker copper. And so for things like our moonshine, our whiskeys, all the equipment that you see is how you control the still proof for the alcohol that you're letting it go up to. So for rum, for whiskeys, you want to stay low on the still proof because you're preserving all the flavors of the beer or the wash that you put into it, right? Whereas for vodka and gin, we use the rest of the equipment that you see. So if you flip, you'll see, we call them rectifiers. If you look in that picture, you'll see a tray with it looks like little mushrooms on top, right? That's called a bubble tray. So the purpose of distillation is to separate your water from your alcohol. So the more times that you're heating up the liquid, you're leaving water behind and you're allowing alcohol to evaporate because it's more volatile than water. It wants to boil off faster than water. At 173 degrees is roughly what we want to capture the alcohol right at that temperature. So the more that happens, the more water you leave behind, the more vapor you allow to escape, you're collecting and concentrating more alcohol. So to get to something at vodka, which is gonna be 95% alcohol when it comes off your still, we're gonna use the pot still twice, the short rectifier and the tall rectifier. So the more times it goes through those trays, the more time it goes through the pot still, like I said, you leave water behind and you get alcohol at the end of it. So essentially that's the point of these. It's called reflux is the term for it that you're trying to achieve with all the equipment that you see.
So we have a lot of equipment to do as much distilling as we want, or the least amount that we want. Now, let me make sure I phrase this correctly. Well, for the shine and for the bourbon, we want to do the least amount of distilling. Why is that? Because we want to retain the grains, the raw materials in the product as much as possible. We want the character of the still to be in the raw material, in the product itself. So you heard Jesse say it, 173 degrees. So when you take a liquid, a solution, and this is what the West Virginia old timers were doing, right? They're over there, you take a liquid, some alcohol in solution, and you heat it to 173 degrees, so it's not boiling. The ethanol comes off early at 173. So that's what we're doing. So we're letting the ethanol come off. We're not wanting to boil the heck out of it because we don't want to cook it. We don't want the flavors of cooking to get into the spirit. We want to just take our time with all of it. Okay? So a lot of people don't realize that. They think you got to boil it to distill it. No, it's actually a lot less temperature than boiling. A little trivia for you. Bread, when you're making bread, if you made homemade bread in your oven, well, you threw yeast in there, right? To make it rise. Well, you actually create alcohol. The yeast is creating alcohol. But the problem is when it passes 173, guess what happens? I mean, every loaf of bread I've ever seen, right, 300 degrees or whatever the stove is at, right? The oven's at. Well, at 173, when you pass 173, the ethanol comes out of your bread. So your bread has actually got alcohol in it for a period of time. But it comes off and you're in your oven cavity and out into the room, a little bit of ethanol is flashed. Okay, so a little trivia for you. Okay.
And then the next page you'll see our gin basket. So if you know what it's like to boil crawfish or shrimp, that's what it looks like on the inside of the gin basket. So what we do is we take our vodka, 95% alcohol, we dilute it back down, we put it in the pot still one more time. On the still, it's gonna go through this basket. Inside of this little pod and the basket itself is where we load all of our fresh botanicals. So we're on the vapor side of things. Some people will soak it and it'll turn in different colors, just naturally. But we chose to be on the vapor side. It's just a little bit cleaner. You get crispness off of it. It's very nice. But anyway, so that is that. It's kind of tucked away in the back, but it's an interesting process,
So
right?
the gin is made from the vodka.
Essentially, it's infused vodka. Gin really is just.
So all we do is put botanicals, we put spice in the vodka to create gin.
Yeah.
Okay, just remember that, it's as simple as that. Now, the spice that we use, that we call them botanicals, we get them from Texas.
As many as we
As
can.
many as
They're
we
not
can.
all from Texas.
As
but
much as we
yeah.
can.
Yeah.
So you have juniper, what else you got in there?
Texas content. We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it, we'll taste a little bit. But we also, that gin basket she's talking about is, it's like, when you're making tea, you know, you tea you have some type of a material. A tea bag, with a tea bag, you have the teas on the inside of the bag, right? So we do the same thing. We have a gigantic tea bag that we throw the botanicals on the inside, and we let the vapor, we let it actually come through the tea bag, and it cascades and makes the gin. Okay?
And then we are underway of a little expansion. So at the end of April, mid-April, we'll have this up and running. It's called
Stillhouse
Stillhouse
number
number 2. Technically, it's called a beer stripper and a doubler. So what we're doing is more of a Scottish style of whiskey, small batch, right? Single malt, just the pot still. And so we're gonna continue to do that, but then on top of it, this is more of a Kentucky style still. And so it's just another long 20 tray column, and then a smaller pot still right next to it. And it'll be a single pass distillation where you start, you run through, and then you have barrel ready spirits at the end of it. So this won't necessarily be what we use for our moonshine, but it will be what we use for some of our bourbon coming up.
So what do you say about all this to a consumer? You're telling them what? You got to meet the makers, and they're customizing every brew to maximize the flavor and maximize whatever that style is. That's what you want to tell them, okay? So we have the equipment in place to make bourbon like they do in Kentucky. We have the equipment in place to make vodka, okay? All the different still components to make vodka. And we also have the equipment in place to make single malts like they do in Scotland.
Which we will eventually, once we have some bourbon barrels.
I can't wait to.
Yes.
Yeah, once we get it, we're gonna use our bourbon barrels for that.
Yes.
So the three main ingredients, on the next page you see our ingredients. The three main ingredients are the grains, the water, and the yeast,
And one
okay?
thing big missing here, and that's what makes the difference between beer and wash, which is what we distill with, no hops.
No hops.
We tried to hop a gin. It was
Oh,
not
it
it.
was
It was not good.
I did it right away, and she likes to remind me about this all the time, because I had to
I
do
still
it.
have it,
Cause
yeah.
I didn't know what it would be like, and I did it, it tasted like crap, it was awful. And I was like, oh man, I really regretted doing that, but she likes to remind me about it, so she saves it so she can remind me, but
So
it-
pretty potent.
it's still pretty potent. But these are the three main ingredients, and this is all you need. This is why people do it in their backyard. Okay, so what you're gonna do is you're gonna make a beer with no hops. You start off with making a beer with no hops with these raw materials, and then you're gonna heat it up to 173, let the ethanol come off, and then you're gonna condense it. In other words, you'll cool it below 173, just when that vapor comes off, and that's when you're gonna get your spirit. Okay?
Sorry, I have a question. What are the grapes that you guys use in it? Corn, and what are the other two?
So we use corn, barley, malted wheat, and we also use rye.
The
Just
rye is
depends. So
a-
yeah, for the shine we use all four. For the vodka, like I said, we just use barley and corn. Just because the rye gives you a natural spice, just think of rye whiskey, right? So it's just unnecessary, really. So.
And the reason why we use barley, and I'll be very technical, the reason why we use barley like in our vodkas is because, for yeast health. It's natural, it's what God gave us, okay, to make beer out of, it's the used barley, because it has the nutrients in it for the yeast, okay? So the yeast is a living organism, so it needs a vitamin pill to do its thing, okay? So all it wants to do is replicate, and when it replicates, it creates alcohol and CO2.
and then moving on to the water.
Yeah, the water in South Texas, where we're at, there's an aquifer that runs between Houston and Corpus. You know about the two towns where Houston and Corpus is at. It's only 100 feet deep, so that's why the immigrants, when they came here, 150 years ago, they came to South Texas, they lived there, and they lived it because they could actually drill or dig by hand a well. And so the well is pressurized, they call it artesian. So what I mean by that is, if you were to actually take the well head off, the water would spew up in the air.
By itself, yeah.
Yeah, like an oil explosion or something, you know. They said, we always laugh about it, everybody's talking about oil in South Texas, we've got water.
It's the original well that we used.
Yeah, we still, I've actually drilled 2 other times over the last 12 years, I've drilled 2 other times into the same
Same depth,
aquifer.
same aquifer.
Same aquifer.
Just to back up in case that
Just to make sure that well doesn't plug, you know, and
Yeah.
it doesn't get some sediment in or something, but it's only 110, 120 feet deep.
Yeah.
So it's really shallow.
Yeah. Most municipalities are well into the thousands.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
most of Texas is 800 to 1,000 feet for most big wells, but we're very shallow.
But along with that comes a lot of minerals. It's very
Oh,
hard
yeah.
water, a lot of calcium.
Well,
But the yeast at the same time likes that. So
It's a vitamin pill for the yeast.
Yeah.
It's got so many minerals in it, the limestone formations underground.
Yeah.
Yeast loves calcium.
Yeah.
I mean, it eats zinc, it eats zinc like it's crack, cocaine. It
Yeah.
just loves all these minerals the yeast does, so it's just like I said, our yeast is extremely healthy, almost too healthy at times, it's almost like Hercules.
We've got so much more than we actually.
We actually produce way more, we sell it, we're actually a yeast
It's in
making
dog
factory.
food, cat food, things like that.
Yeah.
We sell our spent grains, cows get it at a local farm, so.
Yeah.
We tried making chips and crackers out of it and it tasted god awful.
It was terrible.
It was awful.
We thought it'd be something we could sell, and we like, I
There's a
don't
reason
wanna-
cows eat it and humans don't.
Yeah, the cows like it.
But anyway, the water that we brew with is from that well. The water that we proof our spirits down with goes through a reverse osmosis process, RO.
To take a lot of the.
Takes a lot of those
out.
minerals out, cause if you've smelled calcium, it kind of sulfur, smells like raw eggs, right, or like boiled eggs, so we take that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But our yeast, we are so specialized and we're so specific about what we do. All of our yeast strains are different comparing what we're doing. So when we're making vodka, we have raw materials for this and yeast for this. When we're making shine, we have raw materials for this and yeast for this.
Rum
okay?
gets a
So
different yeast.
everything is different, and we're totally customizing for the, again, Jesse said it really quick, we back do everything, we do it backwards. So in other words, we're looking at this end product, and we want something that the bartenders can make great spirits out of, okay, great cocktails. So once we figure out what we need for a great cocktail, then we work backwards into what kind of grains we need to do that, okay? So everything is all about the end product, because the majority of this is all going into cocktails, right? That's what the purpose is. I mean, I don't know anybody, well, I guess I do know maybe 1 or 2 people that drink this straight up, but they usually got a problem with it.
You have a
Take it down a
problem.
notch, yeah.
Yeah, take it.
Well, if we're ready, we can
Let's,
dive into
let's do,
tasting.
let's do a little sample.
Yeah.
I have questions.
Sure.
Please.
I have
You wanna talk
multiple
about
questions,
cinnamon
like,
wine?
as far as the
Oh,
marketing side of
We
things.
will when we taste it.
Okay.
I don't even.
So, what's exactly targeting to? I know it's targeted, 20 above, but from all these data, is it like gathering more like, like the 21 and up Gen Zs, millennials, Gen X, how that?
Very good question, very good question. We notice most of our marketing that it's really the 30-year-old somethings that've got
That
money.
drink Shiner beer know what our
They-
brand
yeah,
is,
they know our
right?
brand, but they also have the ability to pay for,
Some disposable income.
they have disposable income, okay? You don't find somebody buying Lone Star beer, something that's a very, very inexpensive product, necessarily going out and spending, $28 or
Our
$19.
pricing is competitive though,
It's
with
competitive.
like Tito's, Tanqueray, so we're right in
Yeah.
there competing with a better quality product. But still trying to target, and I would say Texas centric.
Very
drinkers.
Texan, they
Yeah.
know Shiner, and they want a Shiner because they're Texans.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
They wanna be known as a Texan.
Yeah.
Okay, Okay, so that's why Shiner is so popular, I mean, so big, and the name is so big
Yeah.
on here, is because usually it's somebody that has a ton of pride in Texas,
Yeah.
that's what we.
It's, every drop is made 4 hours from here, the heart of
Mhm.
South Texas, so.
And then my second question is, I know it's mainly targeted Texas, and I know your goal is to branch out different states. How would that look like eventually people from the south will get it, but what people who are like fur up, like, you know, from the Midwest, the East Coast, Pacific Coast, that are not Texans, how would it look like your approach about introducing China?
Yeah, right now we're not, so
Yeah.
we're just Texas.
Our beers are everywhere.
Our beers are everywhere.
Generally, you'll find them at like barbecue joints, things like that, just
Yeah.
kind of the
So
dark.
we actually have to go to out of state events and it's usually at a barbecue place.
Or a darts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The darts, yeah, we were at the dart
We were
club.
in some darts clubs.
That was gonna get hit. But it's, for right now, we're just Texas though.
For
So-
spirits, yeah,
for
we don't
spirits.
really have plans to go out, that's why we started in Dallas, we're kinda doing a slow, low approach so we can learn along the way, what do we need to improve on, and go from there.
And to be
But-
honest, the reason for the Dallas connection is because the distributor here is very, from an organization standpoint, they're privately held, and we're also privately held.
Texas owned.
We're owned by a family. I report to the owner.
They live in San Antonio.
They live in San Antonio. Jesse knows who her
My
new
boss
boss
is
is gonna
13
be.
years old,
He'll be your boss one day. It
One
won't be
day.
mine, but it'll be yours, you know, but it's, so we know the family, we know it, so everything is family. And so the distributor up here is also a private family.
It also helps y'all are our #1 beer market, y'all sell the most Shiner beer out of
Yeah,
the whole state,
and so that's why we came here, is because of that. And then, and Steve's relationship with you guys is the reason why we're here with you. And then the real simple reason is the fact that we know, like I said earlier, you're an extension of us, and we gotta make sure that you've got as much tools in your tool belt.
I mean, that's also a really good selling point. Anybody visiting that comes to an inspector, you know, goody, you can tell them like, hey, you can only get this here, so take it back with you in your luggage.
Yeah, and we get a lot of that at the brewery. We sell so much at the brewery, it's unbelievable, and it's all because they know that it's nowhere else around the brewery.
Yeah.
And you can't get it in San Antonio, you can't get it in Austin, you can't get it in Houston, but it's here. Now, we are starting that whole process up, and Steve's working on that right now, but we're gonna have it around the whole state here by the end of the year.
But yes, well, to your point, yeah, we can only do it.
Yeah. You want
Good
taste?
questions,
Anybody
though.
want taste?
We wanna dive in, sample a little, right?
Let's do a little taste of,
We'll start with the vodka, it's
we'll
on the
start with
opposite
vodka.
end of your cinnamon shine
Yeah.
down on the end.
now for those of you, if you don't wanna, what I would suggest, if you don't wanna taste it, or you're worried about, drinking and all that kind of stuff, what I would do is, and you don't have to show everybody you do it, but it's just, spit it back, or
Yeah.
put it right back in the container,
Yeah.
but I would go after the flavor so you could actually talk about it.
And #1, beer and spirits tastings are so different than that your mouth is not used to anything at 40%, let alone 45%, so take a nice little sip, coat your mouth, just
And you
enough
can-
to coat your mouth,
And you can
wake
tell
up the
somebody
taste
that
buds,
you can,
right?
yeah, you don't wanna
You
show
can tell
everybody
them
that.
not to,
Yeah,
like,
you wanna
hey.
put it in your mouth and move it around your mouth to get that ethanol burn,
Yeah.
get rid of the ethanol burn, okay, so.
But yes, the vodka smells like vodka, right? It's nice and clean, and it'll go in a vodka tonic, like
kinda
nobody's
sweet to me a
business,
little bit.
right? Yeah.
It tastes good.
Yeah, you should not have any, the basically it should taste like nothing.
Right, it's
It
clean.
should not have an aroma,
Mhm.
it should not have any taste. It's vodka
Shouldn't burn.
by design is there for whatever you're mixing it with,
Some
Yeah.
great
you know?
Some great juice, I like that.
Great.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
That's almost
Yeah.
fine.
That's one of their brands, you do a lemon drop.
Oh, awesome.
They do
Yeah.
sampling, they do it neat, but then they also do a lemon drop.
Yeah, that always helps, as much as you can pair a cocktail, I know it's a fun to make them up, but it's just, yeah, it's fun.
When you do, what we like to do at our bar at the brewery is we like to make something that you would normally go and buy. Well, we like to put vodka in it, or we put our shine in it. I'll tell you one of the drinks that we have is our #1 drink by far. If you go to Sonic and had a cherry limeade, my girlfriend had it years ago. Used to always get a cherry limeade all the time, right? And so we make a cherry lime shine.
With moonshine.
It does taste just like cherry limeade, except you don't realize it. so much of it that we make it up in kegs.
Wow.
Because we have to serve it. We're serving drinks every 45 seconds.
Wow.
On average.
Yeah,
45 seconds. You know how long it takes to make a credit card transaction?
Yeah.
That's in the 45 seconds.
Yeah.
The credit card transaction. So you're like, I mean, we are moving and we gotta make it up ahead of time.
Yeah.
We have a stir in the keg that
Mhm.
keeps it from getting stratified.
Oh, wow.
So like a chemistry set.
yeah. But anyway, that's the vodka. One other thing about it is that we do carbon and chill filter it. So that means we have a skin. You'll see like on tequila bottles or whiskey bottles, sometimes it'll say unfiltered. So what can happen is if it sits in a warehouse at the distributor and it gets below a certain temperature, maybe in the 40s in the warehouse,
Mhm.
some proteins can come out of solution. That's natural. Nothing's harmful in that.
But it's a solid in
But
your
it's a
bottle.
solid, so it might look
People
a little
go
unattractive,
crazy about
right?
that. They're
And
like going,
so-
what's in this thing?
Yeah,
Oh,
so we filter all of our spirits, your spirits here.
And we take the proteins
And we
out.
take the proteins out. We bring it well into the 20s for a few hours and let those proteins come out of the solution, trap them, and then bubble the product. So it just makes it cleaner.
Yeah, one thing that people ask about, these spirits are all gluten-free, okay?
Yes, people ask that.
Yeah, that's
Because
all.
even though you're making it from a raw material that starts with grain, all of that is
All
left
the- all
behind.
that's
No
gone.
gluten allergy is brought over during the
So
distillation
it's all
process.
gluten-free, so
Gluten-free.
those people.
Yeah.
Soy free?
Is it soy free?
Yeah, no,